Now, me as president, anybody who preaches peace, love, harmony, and peace is my friend. Because then the country will be peaceful, the country will be united, and I can rule, and they rule, and they rule.
Some people want to say, Takanga tiri kuhondo, therefore we cannot be criticized. I was in the war myself. I don't mind being criticized by anybody. I don't mind being criticized by anybody. We fought so that we can be democratic discourse.
But today, the current president is ED, but he was expelled from Zanu PF. Why did they expel him from Zanu PF? And it is known as, it's also known as a Zanu PF patriotic frat. Patriotic frat. So basically, the leader did not show patriotism, so we had to expel him.
Now this is the Free Talk. At its ended conference, Zanu PF passed crucial resolutions that will affect the people of Zimbabwe going forward if they are implemented. Now, we all know that Zanu PF, once it passes resolutions at its conference, they have to be implemented, and sometimes either by hook or crook. Now, we are going to discuss how these resolutions are most likely to affect you and what is likely to happen between now and 2027, where Zanu PF heads for a Congress to elect its leader. Whether it's going to elect a new leader in light of this resolution. We're going to have this discussion on this, the Free Talk, in proud partnership with the Frederick Newman Foundation for Freedom, and I, your host as usual, Dara B. Now join me just after this break. Welcome back to this, the Free Talk, in proud partnership with the Frederick Newman Foundation for Freedom. I, your host as usual, Dara B. Now, one of the critical and very crucial resolutions that we're going to be discussing on this, the Free Talk, in this episode this evening, is how Zanu PF is going to extend President Emmerson Dambudzo Mnangagwa's presidential term from 2028 to 2030. Now, we are going to have a discussion on the rationale of trying to extend it by 2 years, how Zanu PF as a system works to achieve these goals, and how the people of Zimbabwe are expected to be part, if they are going to be part of this. And joining me to discuss this is none other than Jelas Mawarire, a journalist and also political analyst. But Jelas Mawarire is unique in this discussion because he has had numerous interactions with insiders in Zanu PF and has had access to some of the internal documents and internal details of the political party. Now, thank you very much for joining me, Jelas Mbizo Mawarire.
Thank you, Dara B.
I mean, now let's start from the top, Jelas. Zanu PF is essentially given an instruction to the party and also to government to extend President Emmerson Dambudzo Mnangagwa's term of office. Right? What is the outlook like around this resolution?
Thank you for that question. I think what we need to discuss, like you pointed out in your introduction, are the implications of such a resolution. It is a resolution which is taking us back to where we were before the enactment of the 2013 Constitution, where we didn't have term limits for a president. And that resulted in us having President Mugabe at the helm of government for 37 years. A thing that led to quite a lot of discohesion within the party and a lot of conflict within the country. And we saw that the discohesion actually then cascaded into the military, into the security sector. Hence, the operation by the security sector to remove him in November 2017. So the resolution to create a life president, as I said, by extending Emerson Mnangagwa's stay in office is a resolution that is taking us back to contentious issues that we thought we had dealt with through the constitution that we voted for in 2018. That's the sum total of that resolution number 1 that was endorsed at the last conference.
But resolution number 1 just seeks to extend this term by 2 years. And how do you connect this to a life president?
Resolution number 1 is just a tester. The suggestion that it's going to extend his stay in office is just one of the disingenuous statements that are being put around in the political discourse. But if you read the papers that have been submitted to Parliament, the various opinion papers that have been submitted to Parliament, for instance, the strictly confidential document that was done by Professor Moyo and Shikamo to the Speaker of Parliament, which proposes a battery of constitutional amendments, which they called an omnibus amendment to the Constitution of Zimbabwe, Bill number 3. Within that document, there is a proposal to postpone elections to 2035. And this is done in view of suggestions on how resolution number 1 could be implemented. So you can't talk of implementation of resolution number 1 without talking to the attendant documents that are being produced by consultants, that are being built by a political, that are being written by a political consultancy firm called Shikamo for the Parliament of Zimbabwe, which proposed to ban elections for 10 years until 2035. So those are the mechanisms that Zanu PF, through the Zimbabwean Parliament, is trying to make sure that resolution number 1 is implemented. So if you calculate that elections are postponed to 2035, that will give President Mnangagwa 18 years at the helm. And 10 years from now, President Mnangagwa purports that he is 83, although we know he is 87. And if you add 87 if you add 10 years to 87, that gives you 97 years. And do you think in 10 years' time you will be mortally on this earth? That's what informs some of us to think that resolution number 1 is about making him a life president. He will only be removed by death. But resolution is put into effect.
But you know this better, Mawaride, that the last time there was an attempt to delay or postpone elections, you approached the courts, and the courts ruled that elections were due by operation of the law. And our constitution is very clear in terms of when elections are supposed to be called, and it actually sets a certain time frame that polling must not be more than 90 days before election, the next 5 years term runs out. Now, how would it be even possible constitutionally to delay elections unless there's an act of God? Is it
Actually, that's what is contained in the document that I referred to, that was done for the Speaker of the National Assembly by Jonathan and his Shikamo co-conspirators. It suggests amendment to the Zimbabwe Constitution through what they call an Omnibus Constitution of Zimbabwe, Amendment number 3, draft bill. And this draft bill seeks to amend, among other sections of the Constitution, Section 158, which deals with when elections are to be held. Section 158 talks about the elections being held every 5 years. So they want to amend that. They also want to amend Section 143 of the Constitution, which deals with duration of Parliament. They also want to amend Section 92 of the Constitution, which deals with direct election of the president. So what they want to do with Section 92 is that they want to remove the provision that enables every Zimbabwean who is eligible to vote to participate in the election of the president, and substitute that with a provision that only allows Parliament to elect the president. And their view is that once that amendment is put into place, once it's assented by the same president and it becomes law, it has the legal effect of cutting his current term of office. And they propose a time in December 2025 to cut the current term of office of President Mnangagwa. And the argument is that if they cut the president's term of office, current term of office, by 22 December, the president would have done 2 years and 3 months. And according to the Constitution, 2 years, 3 months doesn't constitute a full term. Therefore, they purport that he will be eligible for another 5-year term. And their anticipation is that Parliament will, by the 22nd of December 2025, stand to elect President Mnangagwa for a new 5-year term that will take him to 2030. But because they would have suspended elections, he then remains in office until 2035. But their reasoning does not take into account that Section 95 of the Constitution states that the term of office of the president run coterminously with that of Parliament. So it means by ending the term of office of the president, they would have ended the term of office of Parliament, the same institution that they want on the 22nd of December to purportedly elect the president to a new term. So it's not very clear how they are going to deal with that, because if Section 92 is repealed and a new provision comes in which demands that the president is elected through Parliament, the operation or the resultant outcome of the repeal of Section 92 of the Constitution, which then, according to their own argument, will cut short the president's current term of office, should ideally, by operation of law, then also imply that the term of office of the current Parliament would then also be cut short, which then necessitates a general election.
But we saw President Robert Mugabe being ousted from power through Parliament, and this ousting of, would it be an impeachment? Would it be the president? Because the Constitution is very clear that once a president is removed from power, Parliament, I mean, the last person who was acting president, by the time the president is removed from power, becomes acting president for a period of not more than 90 days, upon which Parliament can elect a president. And is this not what they are trying to do in your summation? According to what?
No, that's not what they're trying to do. That's not what they're trying to do. What they're trying to do is to repeal Section 92 of the Constitution. And once they repeal Section 92 of the Constitution and replace it with the provision which demands that the president should be elected by Parliament, not directly by every registered voter in Zimbabwe, it then means that the term of office, the current term of office of the president, would then end. And their suggestion is that once the current term of office of the president ends, by introduction of a new provision which demands that the president is elected by Parliament, then the president, the current president, through what they call a deeming provision, will then stand automatically elected for another 5 years. And this they would do despite the argument that I'm putting forward that the instrument that is supposed to elect the president, which is the National Assembly, which is Parliament, would also stand dissolved by the mere fact that Section 92 of the Constitution would have been repealed, because the term of office of the president and the duration of Parliament, the term of office of our Parliament, are tied together. They run concomitantly. They run coterminously, according to our Constitution, according to Section 95 of the Constitution.
But they could also.
So you can't cut short the president's term of office without cutting short the term of office of Parliament. And once you can't cut short the term of office of Parliament, then it means there should be a general election.
So what it basically also then means is that they could actually, because you said in this document says it's an omnibus amendment, they could also then actually amend Section 95 of the Constitution to separate the life of the president from the life of Parliament, like we used to have before.
Interestingly, Section 95 is not among the sections that they propose to amend. They have proposed to amend Section 143, Section 92.
All right. So I want us to figure this out. These sections that are purported or that you say want to be amended to give effect to resolution number 1, don't they require? I mean, the Constitution requires that anything that has to do with changing of presidential terms, changing of how a president is elected actually is subject to a referendum, is it not?
Yeah, you can see that they deliberately are trying to avoid amendment of Section 328 of the Constitution and sections to do with the term limits, like Section 95. You have been asking about Section 95. Section 95 doesn't only provide for that provision that says the term of office of the president and Parliament run concurrently, but it also stipulates that the term of office of the president should be 5 years. So they don't want. They seem not to want to touch provisions that would demand or directly touch provisions that would demand that we go for a referendum, because clearly the proposals within the document that was done by Jonathan Moyo, the Breaking Barriers Initiative, the proposals are meant to avoid elections. That's why there is a proposal to postpone elections to 2035. And it's not only elections that they are afraid of, they are afraid of referendums. That's why they want to circumvent the issue that they would have extended the president's term of office by coming in with a new provision that substitutes Section 92. So if the proposal to repeal Section 92 goes through, their reasoning is that they are not extending the term of office of the president, the current term of office of the president, but in fact they will be cutting it short. And if they cut it short when the president has only done 2 years, 3 months, it means that that would not be constitutionally recognized as a full term. Therefore, they would say the president has only done 1 full term, which is from 2018 to 2023. The period 2023 to December 2025 would not be counted as a full term. Therefore, their argument is that when he stands elected on 22 December 2025, it will be a new 5-year term. Therefore, he would, if he does that new 5-year term until 2030, he would have done 2 terms.
And Parliament, and Parliament would have, okay, and Parliament would have done 7 years.
Yeah, Parliament would have done 7 years.
And is that permissible in the Constitution?
It's not. It's not, because the Constitution provides that the term of office of Parliament is 5 years. So we would have had Parliament, and in fact, it's not only to 2030, Darabi. It will be to 2035, because the proposal to repeal Section 92 is coming within the gambit of trying to postpone elections to 2035. So Parliament would have done 15 years without the people participating in its election. So you have a situation where people like Sengezo Chavango going for 15 years without being elected by anyone. Because remember, Sengezo Chavango is the one who is earmarked to push this amendment bill in Parliament. And this guy came into Senate, into the Parliament, not on the backdrop of an election, but on the backdrop of some political machinations supported by the ruling party. He wasn't elected by anyone. He is in Parliament not as a result or not as a product of an election. And he wants to go up to 2035 without subjecting himself to the people for election. So that's the unfortunate situation. We are going to have characters that were not elected by anyone sitting in Parliament and proposing far-reaching amendments to our Constitution, although they are not accountable to anyone because they have not been elected by anyone.
But let us look at what if this document is just it's just a dud. It's not genuine. It is really not a document that Zanu PF and government is considering. Have you ever thought of that?
No, but the document is genuine. The document is genuine. The authors, I have spoken to the authors of the document. I have spoken to Glenn Mopani for more than 50 minutes on this document. You have seen Jonathan Moyo coming out just yesterday in a tweet. He was quoting breaking barriers in a tweet that he was writing about the so-called economic progression that justifies the current president to still stay in power. He referred to breaking barriers, which is the same document that he wrote with Glenn Mopani. So this is a document. This document, it's not only one document. It's the Breaking Barriers Initiative document. Then subsequent briefs that the same people, the same Jonathan Moyo, made to the Speaker of Parliament, and also a separate document that he wrote to the Minister of Justice, Ziyambi. And as we have also gathered that there are even plans for Ziyambi to travel to Kenya to meet with Jonathan Moyo and to discuss this omnibus Constitution of Zimbabwe Amendment Draft Bill, Amendment number 3 Draft Bill.
If it's
It's not a question of conjecture as to whether it's an official document or what. These documents are genuine. These documents are legit. These documents are with the people that I'm saying they have them. The Speaker of Parliament has the proposals, his own separate proposal. The Minister of Justice has his own briefs from Shikamo and Jonathan Moyo. And there is then the founding Breaking Barriers Initiative document, which summarizes the proposals and the proposal to postpone and ban elections for 10 years. So these are documents that are legit. These are documents that even the authors have not denied their existence. Although in my conversation with Glenn Mopani, he was suggesting that there are a few things that they have tinkered with from the documents that we have. But clearly, it was just a way of trying to run away from conversations or the issues that I was raising against the proposals that are contained therein. And it was also a ploy for me not to go public about their document.
But, Jealous, I mean, let's talk about Zanu PF itself as an institution. We have heard that there are certain, factions within Zanu PF, or there's an abyss. Some people don't really believe in this 2030 agenda, which you are saying is actually a 2035 agenda. What is going to be the reaction? Because at conference, we saw singing and dancing, and Zanu PF appears so geared to have this delivered.
I think it will be quite amiss to judge Zanu PF with a few people that were gathered in Mutare. Most of them paid $200 to attend, $200 each to attend. And by the mere fact, if you look at the numbers, Bulawayo, I think, had the highest number, 402 delegates. Most of the provinces had 200 delegates. So you cannot actually judge the reaction to those far-reaching proposals, the reaction to those less than 3,000 people who gathered in Mutare. Those are not Zanu PF, the alpha and omega of Zanu PF. In fact, you look at the vice president and second secretary of Zanu PF, he has made it very clear, abundantly clear, that 2030 is not about an individual. It's not about extending the reign of an individual, but it's a national vision that should be tied to national processes, not tied to the existence of a mortal being. So if you have division right at the top of Zanu PF within the presidium, then we are bound to have serious divisions right within the membership of the party, especially if you look at the nature of the proposals that are being put forward. The idea of trying to postpone elections for 10 years. No right-thinking Zimbabwean would think that taking away their rights of electing their leadership is something that is good for them. You look at the proposal to amend Section 158, I think, 158 of the Constitution, and to take away the custody of the voters register from ZEC and putting it back to the Registrar General. That is what we contented with before 2013. There were serious allegations that the then Registrar General, Tobai Wamdede, was tampering with the voter register.
But there's still equally the same allegations that ZEC is tampering with the voters' roll and that ZEC is refusing to have it independently audited, and that ZEC is not even clean itself and it can't generally run a free and fair election. So is it not the same?
It's not the same, Dara. It's not the same having an individual called the Registrar General responsible for the voter register and having an institution, a Chapter 12 institution, which should be independent, which is ZEC, having custody of the voter register. Yes, I agree that there are questions on the partiality of ZEC, but it's easier to reform an institution. It's easier to populate an institution with professionals than to reform an individual. So my argument is that yes, we need independent ZEC to operate independently. But it's always good for democracy to repose responsibility within institutions rather than individuals. And that's the whole argument that political parties put forward in removing the voters' roll from the Registrar General's office into the Zimbabwe Election Commission, because the Zimbabwe Election Commission is an institution. It's a Chapter 12 institution which is run by independent commissioners. So our duty then is to ensure that ZEC is independent. So it's easier to ensure that an institution is independent than an individual. Democracy is about creating powerful institutions, and we can't then argue that we have to return to a situation where an individual is keeping the voters on.
You argue that Vice President Constantino Chiwenga has said the issues around 2030 that you said, but is he not the same person who told us as Zimbabweans that President Emerson Dambudzo Mnangagwa was the Munumutapa of this era and that he could not be challenged? In fact, he said this admonishing a chief who had challenged some of the trades and things that President Emerson Dambudzo Mnangagwa was doing.
I think we have to separate political banter and election campaign rhetoric from policy issues. I think that statement was made at a political rally, and policies are not made at political rallies. That's political banter. That's campaign rhetoric, which shouldn't be taken seriously.
So, some people have said that the general, the retired general, is failing to stamp his foot, and he's losing, and watching his allies being knocked off one by one, and he's doing absolutely nothing about it. So by the time this thing comes to its head, he will have no allies whatsoever in the Politburo. And in fact, Christopher Mchangwa, the Zanu PF spokesperson, actually said that he, the Vice President Constantino Chiwenga, is a lone figure in the Politburo, in the Central Committee. He is fighting a losing battle. What is your thinking around that?
My argument is that we have not had anyone come out in the open to say, I am Vice President Chiwenga's person. What we have only had is that people who have been either moved from one position to the other are then labeled his people by the media. We don't know for sure whether those are his people that are being moved. We don't know who among those that haven't been moved are his people, because no one has actually come out in the open to say, I am the general's person. Neither has anyone also within the Politburo come out except maybe Christopher Mchangwa, has come out to say, I am Emerson Mnangagwa's person. So it's just, those are just assumptions that this one belongs to this one belongs to this one. And I don't think the general needs people to stand up and say, I am in support of the general. I think what the general has done is to stand on constitutionalism and to stand by the people, because this constitution was voted for by more than 99% of our people. 99.4% of the people voted for this constitution. So if he stands for constitutionalism, if he stands to defend the constitution, it means he's standing with more than 94% of the people that voted for this constitution. And I think that's all he needs. He needs Zimbabweans, the generality of Zimbabweans, to stand by him as he stands on constitutionalism, or as he stands for that which makes us a people, for as he stands for the very foundational and existential provisions of our constitution. That's what is important. He doesn't need an individual. He doesn't need an individual like Mawarire to say, I stand with the vice president. No, he's standing on the truth. He's standing on constitutionalism. He is standing against the corruption. That's all what is needed for him and the people of Zimbabwe who rally behind such a leader.
But how does he separate himself from a political party that he was, how does he separate himself from the actions of Zanu PF when he's in the top echelons of Zanu PF, and he was part of this conference that made this resolution, and also is going to be part of this Zanu PF that was going to be amending the constitution. So if he doesn't believe in what the party is doing, why is he staying in the party? So doesn't it just show that he's part of this?
I think clearly he has shown that he is not part of the road. His stance on corruption resonates with the people, and unfortunately, it's resonating against the criminals that are around the president and the criminals that have become the president himself. So that way, when he confronted the president on the issues of corruption, on the various issues, vices that are affecting the country in the Politburo, he distinguished himself. He has shown that he stands for the people and he stands against corruption. And for him to have the courage to confront the head of state and say, you have to deal with the scourge of corruption. We have to arrest those 4 individuals that he mentioned by name, in order to cleanse the country and to rid the country of the economic vices which are hampering development. I think that has shown that he stands outside the cabal that is looting the country. And the response by Ziyambi shown that the vice president has broken ranks with those that are criminally looting our national resources. So I don't think there's anything else that shows that he's not part of the system that is looting than what he has said, than his efforts to stop the looting, his efforts that he has done within the Politburo. And the fact that the resolution was passed, but you have to look at the nature of how Zanu PF conducts itself. You have just 2 people, 10 people ululating, and then it's purported to have the provision would purported to have been endorsed. That is of no legal consequence. The real job is what we are going to see now. We then don't have to jump the gun and anticipate that the vice president would do this and would do this. Let's wait and see when the resolution to amend the constitution in order to extend the president's stay in office, when it comes to parliament, Let's see then what will happen thereafter. Then we judge the vice president by the reactions or by the actions that he will take thereafter.
But Jealous, you do know the fate that befalls people who oppose Zanu PF or who break ranks. Most of them are fired. And would it make sense for him to wait to be fired?
But I think we have a precedence where one was fired and is now the president. So so if there is that president, why not wait to be fired and also become a president if history repeats itself?
Some were fired and went into oblivion. And you had an opportunity to work with one vice president who was actually fired.
I think the only person who was fired and went into oblivion is Maim Juru. And you know the nature of our patriarchal politics and other factors that militated against the actual successful challenge for power. But we have a recent example of a vice president that was fired and then eventually he became a president. And I would love to look at that immediate example rather than going back to 2014. Let's go back to 2017. It's close enough. A vice president was fired and became president. What stops this vice president from being fired and becoming a president as well?
Because some people believe that there is absolutely no chance that another coup will happen in Zimbabwe. And also having foresight of what happened in 2017, the current president is ring-fencing his security interests by making sure that the people who are closely aligned to him are running the army. And that could be a problem for the general if he is fired.
But no one said that the only avenue for a fired vice president to become a president is a coup. No one is suggesting that. Neither am I sitting here saying that if he gets fired, there will be a coup. No, that's not what I'm saying.
But
and come back as the president of the country. As to the nitty-gritties on how he is going to come back and become president, then that's a very different question altogether. But what I'm saying is that there is likelihood that if he gets fired, he will become the president of the country in the near future.
But
I'm not suggesting that he will become the president on the backdrop of a coup. No, I didn't say that.
But Jealous, I've sat here with you and had interviews with you, and you have been clear that the military, the securocrats, are very significant in terms of who leads this country. And we saw that in 2017. And if he doesn't have that constituency of the military, how does he envisage himself to get to that position?
Let's say he has that military constituency. Do you think that the military only has the only option that is available to the military to influence leadership change is a coup?
I'm in the outside. You have had the benefit of working closely with some of these people, so you might give us insights.
No, that's what I'm suggesting. I'm saying I don't think that's the only option that the security sector has to influence politics in Zimbabwe. I don't think they have been doing that through coups. The military have been involved in our politics since the enactment of our nation state. Since we started identifying ourselves as Zimbabwean, but we have never had a coup. We only had a coup in 2017. So I think there are various means through which the military can influence political processes in the country, which are outside a direct show of force through a coup.
Now let's look at the people of Zimbabwe. Do you think the people of Zimbabwe are in any position able to stop this 2030 agenda if it comes to pass?
Yes, they have capacity. Yes, they have capacity. I have absolute confidence that the people of Zimbabwe can stop this. They can stop this through parliament. They can stop this through massive demonstrations. They can stop this by or even Zanu PF can stop this by passing a vote of no confidence in the president. So there are a lot of avenues, peaceful avenues, that the people of Zimbabwe can actually employ to stop the 2030 or 2035 nonsense. There is also an avenue to lobby through the region, through other neighboring governments, because the idea of introducing a life president, as it were, or banning elections, it minimizes the role that people play in the governance of their country, in participating in democratic processes in their country. So it leaves room for people, for insurrection. It leaves room for people, for the situation to implode. That's the unintended effect of postponing elections for 10 years. So surely an implosion in Zimbabwe will affect the region, and the region cannot stand by when the situation in Zimbabwe is being fomented to the level of an explosion.
I mean, do
Because
you
that
think
will have serious economic consequences, especially for countries like South Africa, for countries like Botswana. So there's need, therefore, for the SADC region
do you think
to take an
SADC
interest in what is happening?
do you think SADC cares? I mean, SADC handed over chairmanship to Madagascar when they saw Madagascar was at the brink. Do you think SADC cares?
I think they do. I think they do. It depends upon the extent to which those that are responsible in Zimbabwe, how they lobby the region, because the region's interest is as good as the efforts that are being made to conscientize them about what is happening in Zimbabwe. So once it is clearly laid out, once the arguments are clearly put forward against the extension of the president's office and his term in office, and also the possible repercussions of such a provision, I think SADC will stand interested in what's happening in the country. But ultimately, Zimbabweans have to push. Zimbabweans have to demonstrate their disdain towards these provisions. And therefore, the ball is in our court. We need to mobilize. And mobilizing we will. Institutions like the Center for the Defense, the Constitution Defense Forum, CDF, will come in very handy. I've seen they've done a lot of groundwork on how to defend the Constitution. And I think such institutions will be very key as we go forward. And as well, opposition MPs within Parliament will be very key. And even Zanu PF parliamentarians. I know there are a lot of them who don't believe in this nonsense, in this 2030 nonsense. We cannot go back to a situation where we have a 93-year-old at the helm. This is what people refused in November 2017 when President Mugabe was 93 years old and people were saying he's too old to preside over the national matters. So why should it be admissible? Why should it be plausible for Emerson Mnangagwa at 93 or at 97 to be still at the helm of our country? I think Zimbabweans will reject that. Zimbabweans will mobilize each other. They will definitely stand up. They will definitely rise up against this shenanigans.
But how so? Because I've seen just following conversations, Zimbabweans themselves are deeply divided, easy to fight each other. And just last week, a demonstration that was called for by Blessed Geza was a monumental flop. And now you walk into court, you see elderly war veterans who are walking barefooted, struggling as they fight for their freedom through the bail system that's taking ages to even work for them. Is it even possible that the people of Zimbabwe have that energy to challenge those elites and those with power?
I think the greatest lesson that history has taught us is that human beings rebound from earlier setbacks. The liberation struggle that was waged was successful, despite that the first attempt by 7 combatants in Chinhoyi was smashed. All of them died in battle. But that didn't stop the liberation struggle from being prosecuted. A lot more people joined the struggle. They refined their tactics, they refined their strategies, and they went on to win the war. So temporary setbacks are not eternal setbacks. They are setbacks. There are lessons that are learned in order for people to be better organized the next time. I wouldn't look at what happened last week and say it shows that Zimbabweans cannot come together and stand up against tyranny, stand up against Mnangagwa, who wants to make himself a monarch. And by the way, one of the resolutions of that conference was to declare the 15th of September, which is the president's birthday, as Mnumtapa Day. And this is running parallel to some efforts that are being made by some. At first instance, I thought it was just a delusional young man who wants to declare himself King Mnumtapa and declare Zimbabwe a monarchy. But you can actually see that that's the thinking of the president, to make himself a monarchy. He has stolen elections. Now he wants to steal royalty. He wants to make himself Mnumtapa. Why does he make his birthday known as Mnumtapa? He's not of the Roji. He's not a descendant of the Roji. He's not a Moyo. How then does he identify himself or want to tie his birthday to being Mnumtapa? He's not. He's not a Moyo. He's not a descendant of the Roji. He's a Siwanda. If at all, he's truthful about his own totem. So why do we talk about his birthday being Mnumtapa Day? Which Mnumtapa? So those are some of the nonsensical things that the Zanu PF conference set down to resolve on. Why trying to create a monarchy? Because we have actually begun to see that this guy who is writing letters to government departments saying that he is King Mnumtapa is doing it for the president. The president wants to declare himself a monarchy. He wants to make Zimbabwe a monarchy. And this goes in tandem with proposals to ban elections, because you don't elect monarchs. And that should be resisted by Zimbabweans. And there are a lot of things that can galvanize us, that can actually bring us together as Zimbabweans to stand against this tyranny, to stand against this nonsense. And I think Zimbabweans will find each other, despite the setback on the 17th of October, but Zimbabweans will find each other and they will fight this nonsense that the president is pushing through.
Ma'am Jealous, not that I want to. I want to endorse this because I do know for a fact that what they call the village intelligence is full of lies. After having made lies that I received 20,000, but this Alinaka made these certain allegations that there are people who will pretend to be fighting against the constitutional molestation, but then they've received lots of money and now they're driving Lamborghinis in Johannesburg and stuff like that. Now, I'd want you to address some of this because these are things that people are reading and some people actually really believe. Is there fact in it?
I'm not in Johannesburg, so I haven't seen anyone driving a Lamborghini. Anyone that is fighting against these unconstitutional moves who is driving a Lamborghini. You know, people say a lot of things on social media. The same person alleged that you were given money by Themba Mliswa, and you and I know that it was a lie. So it's someone who is well known of pushing through rumors, lies, and he has taken it upon himself to make it his own business, attacking people that he doesn't. He thinks doesn't support whatever particular viewpoint he has at that particular time. So this idea that people misused Lamborghinis. So what time did they get the money and bought the Lamborghinis? What time period? When did they receive the money? When did they buy the Lamborghinis? When were they then seen driving the Lamborghinis? These are just the rumors to try to dissuade people that are fighting a just cause. And these rumors should be dismissed with the contempt they deserve.
But so in the liberation struggle, there was this arm for the guerrilla warfare which dealt with propaganda. And as you were saying, that there's these falsehoods that are being peddled. I mean, I can confidently say I can confidently talk about the falsehoods because there's someone who sits in his home on an iPad or on a phone and just decide to write lies about an individual without giving due regard of what, the dangers they put other people in through lies. How do you look at this and propose to deal with this going forward? Because you say that Zimbabweans have to find each other, and I find it very difficult for Zimbabweans to find each other where people peddle such lies.
Would you mind to repeat the question, Zanu? I didn't get it.
So I'm saying during the liberation war struggle, there were lies. There was propaganda arm of the guerrilla liberation war fighters to deal with certain lies that were coming through. And as you say, that Zimbabweans have to find each other in this in dealing with this constitutional molestation, if you like. What do you think Zimbabweans should do, or going forward, what are you proposing to do to deal with such propaganda and lies? Because Zimbabweans can't find each other in that toxic environment.
I think we need a rallying point. We need, when people were pushing for reforms in 2007, we had an organization called Save Zimbabwe. The Save Zimbabwe campaign, it was coordinated. It was an umbrella organization that was formed. And I would like to believe that the Constitutional Defense Forum is such an umbrella organization that can bring Zimbabweans together because it is non-partisan in nature. So therefore, we need such an institution to bring people together on the common purpose of resisting the mutilation of our constitution.
But the lies, let's talk about the lies. Let's talk about how you deal with these things, because you and I know that some of these things that have been peddled around have been lies. For instance, as you speak to me about the BBI document, I sit there and you tell me that it was written partly by Glenn. If you follow his tweets, some of them suggested that Nelson Chamisa sold to Zanu PF, yet he is employed by Zanu PF. Now that you did this document for Zanu PF, I'm sure they got paid for it. So let's talk about how do you deal with these things?
I think we need to talk to each other. We don't need to talk about each other. We need to talk to each other, and that's exactly what some of us are doing. We talk to these people, and even when I got the BBI, the first person that I spoke to after going through the document and going through the attendant briefs that were written to the Speaker of Parliament and the one that was written to the Minister of Justice, Ziyambi. I phoned Glenn and I asked him, okay, do you have time that we talk about this document before I go public about it? So we should talk to each other. We should understand each other. And that's what we need to do. This idea of talking to each other on social media, while it might excite people, it doesn't build countries, it doesn't build nations. So the process of talking to each other should be coordinated. And that's why I'm saying the Constitution Defense Forum is a platform that Zimbabweans can use, especially to launch a resistance against the mutilation of our constitution. We can be coordinated by this organization so that we sit down with legal minds, with political minds, with social scientists, with the common people, so that we deliberate on what needs to be done. And I think from now on, the Constitutional Defense Forum will be very key. And there are war veterans that are involved in this Constitutional Defense Forum. And some of them have even launched court applications against compensation of white commercial farmers. They've also launched court applications against the Tagwire-led Land Tenure Implementation Committee. So, yeah, we need an organization that brings, a non-partisan organization that brings Zimbabweans together for a common purpose, especially on the issue of the constitution. And Save Zimbabwe can do this for us now. Then the National Constitutional Assembly did that in 2000 against the Constitutional Commission draft constitutional bill. We believe that the Constitutional Defense Forum came at an opportune time for Zimbabweans, especially to defend their constitution. So yes, Zimbabweans should talk to each other, and I believe that the Constitutional Defense Forum will do quite a splendid job uniting Zimbabweans against the onslaught on our constitution that President Emerson Mnangagwa has embarked on.
Some would say, I mean, this is known that poverty delays democracy, delays the implementation or enjoyment of democracy. And we have seen that those who are pushing for the 2030 agenda have money, they have deep pockets. Week in, week out, they donate vehicles, they donate money. How do you think that you're able to fight? You are going to be able to fight against such deep-pocketed people?
I think the most important differentiation between those that are pushing the 2030 agenda and those that are fighting against it is the fact that those that have money have no history behind them. Those that have money have no morality behind them. They don't stand on the truth, but they stand on avarice. They stand on greed. They don't stand on principle. So those that are fighting the 2030 agenda are standing on principle, are standing on constitutionalism, and therefore they have the people. Those that have money have not enough money to buy the 16 million Zimbabweans. So yes, it might seem insurmountable, but history has taught us that if you stand on principle and if you stand on constitutionalism, if you stand for the interests and aspirations of the Zimbabwean people, you have 50% of the job done. And once you have the people, once you have the moral pedestal to stand on, you have the job half done. Yes, these ones might be splashing around money, but I don't think it's sustainable. You don't do politics. You don't transact with money successfully in politics for a long time. You might win short-term battles, but definitely you will lose the war.
But do you think this one is going to be an easy battle? I drive through Chancellor Avenue, and I see the wall that is being built around State House, and I say to myself, would someone build this kind of jewel and want to leave State House for someone else?
Circumstances will force people to leave. You might build a perimeter wall, decorate it in gold, but still never going to live in the confines of those walls. The people of Zimbabwe will make it very untenable for President Mnangagwa to go on. And you will see it. It will happen. And I would like to believe that he has to realize before he is humiliated that he needs to do what is good for the country, especially if he were to hand over power, he would be the first one in Zimbabwe, the first leader in Zimbabwe, to willfully hand over power. Whether he does that now or he will do it in 2028, that would still build a legacy for him of peaceful transition of power. And I thought this is what he wanted when he came into power in 2017. He has to do the right thing. He has to think about his children. He has to think about the posterity. He has to think about the stability that will be symbolized by him willfully handing over power in 2028 at the end of his term. That would actually announce the maturity of our democracy, so to speak. We should be able to change governments peacefully. And I thought he was going to be the catalyst. And I thought this was the thinking even behind Operation Restore Legacy. So I think he should be reminded, his advisors should remind him. If he's not reminded by his advisors, I think the people of Zimbabwe would remind him that he has to do the right thing. And if he doesn't do that, unfortunately, he will be dragged out of power. And he would not have anyone to blame except himself. Because if he's entertaining constitutional illegalities when he's sworn in to defend the Constitution, then definitely he has no business being in State House.
But is he violating the Constitution? Because he has said that he's a constitutionalist and he will respect the Constitution and will leave when his time constitutionally comes to an end. This is what he has said. So if a constitution is amended to allow him to stay and it's done so legally, is he still not a constitutionalist?
I think if you amend the Constitution in order to push forward a nefarious agenda, that's not being a constitutionalist, because being a constitutionalist is observing the spirit and letter of the Constitution. So observing the spirit and letter of the 2013 Constitution is to observe term limits, to say a president is supposed to go for a maximum of 2 5-year terms. Thereafter, you leave office and you leave others to take over from you. And if then you want to change the Constitution after you've done 8 years or 7 years, and you come in with some constitutional chicanery to then say, these 2 years that I've done are not counted as a term. That's not observing the spirit of the Constitution.
But also the spirit and letter
is not just observing the letter of the Constitution, but it also entails observing the spirit, the kind of national aspirations that informed the provisions of the Constitution.
But also these national aspirations include include economic prosperity. It includes prospering and improving the quality of life for the people of Zimbabwe. And those who are pushing for this argue that President Emmerson Mnangagwa is the best foot forward to improve the economy of this country, to maintain stability, and therefore, in the spirit of the Constitution, it is imperative to keep him in power. Would you push back against such sound thinking?
I think economic growth should be felt in the pockets of the people through disposable income, an increase in disposable income, particularly by those people that are employed by government. You see, government is the biggest employer, and one of the people that are vying to be the president, Kulakwa Shetagwire, said that government is the biggest business partner that anyone can have. You know, if government is the biggest business partner that Gure and the like are having, and they are getting a lot of money, they are being paid a lot of money by government through the tenders that they are doing, it therefore means that government should be ideally be very well financially resourced. And therefore that should show in the amount of money that government employees are getting. Because you can't have a situation where government is getting into business with people and those people become billionaires, yet government workers are getting $230 per month. So we have to measure economic growth in terms of the money that is disposable to the people of Zimbabwe. Are the people of Zimbabwe better off than what they were in 2017? In 2017, government employees were earning $500, some said $600. Now they're earning $230. Is that better? Is that better? Is that a sign? Is that growth or is regression? So these figures, I've seen Professor Moyo throwing around the GDP figures and stuff like that. You know, economists have long dismissed GDP as a measure of the standard of living of people, because GDP, by its nature, is a measurement of how of the rate at which resources are turned into rubbish. There are a lot of economists who have written about that. One of them is the late American economist Herman Daly. He wrote extensively about how GDP cannot be used to measure the standard of living of people. So this idea that Mnangagwa has presided over a growing economy, these are pure lies that are based on fictitious figures that are being thrown around by the regime propagandists, and it does not reflect on the standard of living of our people. You have seen Darabi, you have seen how poorly resourced our hospitals are. In any case of emergency, we have seen our people being having cardboard box casts. We saw a very prominent musician who died crying for a painkiller in one of our biggest hospitals in Zimbabwe. We have seen our factories closing in Bulawayo because there's shortage of maize. Blue Ribbon is actually temporarily shut down in Bulawayo. And those are indicators. From the beginning of this year, OK Zimbabwe has closed how many branches? The supermarkets are virtually empty. And you say there's production. You say there's economic growth. What kind of economic growth? You can't build an interchange, a small interchange for that matter, and say we have done wonders. You know, I'm in a particular Southern African country. You see, you drive through the roads there. The roads are splendid. There is massive, even the paintings on the buildings in the city center, massive work that is being done there. The roads are wider than the roads that you find in Harare. The roads don't have potholes. The carriage markings are well defined. The streets are clean. And you don't hear the president of that country saying, I need to go for a further 20 more years because I've built roads. That's ridiculous. You know, governance is about building institutions that outlive leaders. And that's democracy. And that's what we should do. And that's what informs national development. And this idea that someone can do 230 kilometers along the Masvingo Bight Bridge Road and then purport to have done wonders to an extent that he has to be a monarchy in Zimbabwe is totally reprehensible, is totally ridiculous. We don't need to entertain that kind of thinking for a day, because governance is about collective action. It's not an individual journey that a president can say, because I've done this. It's not the president as an individual who is doing this. It's collective action as Zimbabweans. And we should actually be very honest with ourselves in terms of how we appraise the things that we are doing. Right now, Lorraine Drive, which runs from Harare Drive to the Westgate roundabout. It was closed before the SADC summit, which transferred the chairmanship to President Emerson Mnangagwa. It's still closed now after he has already done his 1 year and is handed over to Madagascar. You see, so those are things that people are seeing. There's nothing, there's no movement there, despite the propaganda that we're seeing. You close a road, which is less than 4 kilometers, for resurfacing. It's not like they were even doing it for the first time. It's resurfacing. You close it for more than 16 months. And you say you are doing wonders. What wonders are you doing? This is the most ridiculous thing that I've seen in Zimbabwe, where a president just patches potholes and says, I've done wonders, so I have to stay longer than what is constitutionally permissible. A president is elected to deliver. So if you deliver, it doesn't then follow that you have to extend your tenure. You were given 5 years because people think you can deliver in those 5 years. If you deliver fair and fine, then you go after you've delivered, because that's what you have been elected to do in the first place. You don't justify your move towards authoritarianism and towards illegally extending your stay in tenure. You don't justify it by delivering, because you were elected to deliver in the first place. And the people who elected you to deliver in a time frame of 5 years. So if you do good in the first 5 years, they give you a second and last 5 years. Even if you invent a human being, you create your own human being who is immortal, still you just do those last 5 years and you go, and others come in with their own ideas. That's what constitutionalism is all about. You don't mutilate the constitution and justify that by saying I've patched the potholes, I've built an interchange. That's nonsensical.
But Jealous, some people would want to know what is really your interest in this? Why are you pushing this? Who's behind you?
My interest is constitutionalism, is good governance. I've done this before. I'm glad that now Zimbabweans are beginning to see the reason why I was saying elections are supposed to be done when they are constitutionally due. When I made that court application, it was to entrench constitutionalism and democratic practice in this country. This is exactly what I'm doing. I'm saying we have to stick to our constitutions. Elections should be done when they are constitutionally due, and those that are constitutionally barred from participating in elections because they've done their mandatory 10 years in power. They should respect the constitution and let others take over the baton. That's exactly my fight. My fight is about good governance. My fight is about constitutionalism. My fight is about giving the Zimbabwean people a platform to participate in the governance of their country through periodic, free and fair elections. That's what I'm advocating for, and that's what I want to see. I want to see done in Zimbabwe. I want a free Zimbabwe where all institutions work for everyone, where we are all equal before the law. We want the judiciary to be independent. We want parliament to play its oversight role on the executive. We want Chapter 12 institutions like ZEC and the Zimbabwe Anti-Corruption Commission to be independent and therefore deliver their duties for the good of the Zimbabwe people. That's what I want. That is my interest, and that informs what I do. And that informs what I'm doing now. And I stand on those principles, and I'm prepared to pay the ultimate price for those principles. As long as we are doing this for our children, as long as we are doing this for the next generation, we will continue to fight. And eventually, I'm convinced evil can never triumph over good. What is good for Zimbabwe is constitutionalism. What is good for Zimbabwe is to listen to their aspirations that are contained in the national document that is called our constitution. And we are going to push for that. We are not going to fear anyone. Even death is not going to stop us from doing what we are doing now.
Jela, some would say that you have military backing. You have been there. You have been accused of dabbling with the military. You actually have been accused of assisting during the 2017 coup. The reports that you were normally seen at KG6 giving military some advice and stuff like that. You know, because some of the things that you say might probably bring grave danger to your life. Do you have this military backing? And if not, what makes you strong and feel safe when you take on those who are powerful and mighty, as you are trying to do right now?
I don't have any connections to the military. I was against the military takeover in November 2017 because I still believe it was unconstitutional. It deposed a constitutionally elected president. It wasn't constitutional. So I don't understand why those that say I have military backing, where they get it from, because I was very much against the 2017 coup. And what gives me the energy to do what I do, the confidence to do what I do, is because I know that I'm doing the right thing. And I'm protected by the Almighty. For me, this is a calling. It's a calling from God, and I'm doing this because inside of myself, I believe I'm doing the right thing. And God has been protecting me all along. And I don't fear anything, and I don't fear anyone, because I know.
Do you have ambitions of being a president of this country?
No, I don't have ambitions to be president of the country. I have ambition to see that the president, whoever becomes president in this country, does the right thing, observes the constitution, allows the people of Zimbabwe to enjoy the rights that are enshrined in the 2013 constitution. The right, the freedom of expression, right of association, right to belong to political parties of their choice, right to form political parties if they want to, the right to participate in periodic elections freely and fairly, the right to life. Those are fundamental rights contained in the Bill of Rights in our constitution. And my conviction is that whoever becomes president of the country should ensure that our people enjoy those rights. And our people have a right to participate in the economic activities of this country. They have equal opportunity to start businesses, to grow their own wealth, to be employed, and to definitely enjoy the happiness that come with good governance and national stability. That's what I want, and that's what I'm fighting for.
You said you're in a SADC country that you're in. Are you running away for any reason? Are you in exile?
I've just taken security measures around myself. I move by what the Holy Spirit and instinct tells me. So if I feel that I'm not secure in a particular location, I go to a location that I feel is secure and can actually allow me to do the work that I'm doing without worrying about what's behind me. And that's what exactly I've done. I'm worried that in Zimbabwe, there are a lot of dangers. I might be poisoned, I might be shot. So that's why I've moved. Initially, I went to China. I did 30 days in China. I went back. I was in another SADC country. I left. I went to another one. I've been to more than 5 SADC countries now.
We have run out of time, but like as I normally do, Jealous, I will invite you to speak from the heart. Any issue that you think you'd want to share, a question that I have not probably asked you. I'll give you just under 2 minutes to do that.
I want to reiterate to Zimbabweans that the fight to defend our constitution is not insurmountable. It can be done. And we need to come together as Zimbabweans, leaders of political parties, church leaders, religious leaders, civil society. We need to come together. And that's why I was proposing that the Constitution Defense Forum is an ample forum that we can use as Zimbabweans from all walks of life. Come together. Let's sit and talk about ways that we can put in place in order to defend our constitution. Our constitution has one of the most comprehensive and fundamental Bill of Rights that you can ever find. If those fundamental rights are enjoyed by Zimbabweans, you will see that there will be happiness in the country, there will be economic growth, and there will be general peace and stability. Because our country has been polarized for a very long time. We need to talk to each other as Zimbabweans rather than talk at each other. We need to come together, look at what binds us. And I think what binds us at this particular time is our constitution, is our national constitution. It binds us, it brings together, it addresses our very existential questions. Who are we? What are the freedoms that we enjoy as Zimbabweans? What are our rights? What are the opportunities that obtain before us as a people? Let's come together, let's reason together, let's stop talking about maliciously accuse each other, of being bought by this one, being bought by that one, because it doesn't help us where we are. Let's sit down as Zimbabweans and devise ways of how we can move our country forward. We need each other more than ever at this particular time, because the task at hand is huge. It's a task to defend our 2013 Constitution. And we can only do this if we are united. And if we stand in unison to send a loud and clear message to President Mnangagwa to say, don't mutilate our constitution. Hanzi navabiti constitution izamramai aribatwi.
I want to thank you very much, Jealous Mawarile, for joining me on this, The Free Talk, in proud partnership with the Frederick Newman Foundation for Freedom. Here we believe in free speech. We believe everybody must be heard, and we are strongly bound by the issue that Zimbabwe can only be built if people of Zimbabwe are able to talk to each other and not through each other. And this is, and this will always be, The Free Talk with me, your host as usual, Dara B. Now, don't forget to like, follow, and share, retweet our content so that it reaches as many people as possible, because we believe that the truth must always be heard. I want to thank you, Jealous, and wish you, good luck in all your endeavors.
Thank you, Derabi.
Mutengo wa kutenga